1,740 plus tons. I think we ought to now have the rebuttals, and I'll let Mr. Paul.
Thank you very much. I think it's interesting that Governor Partee, when he was referring to our gold eagle, didn't talk about the minting of a gold eagle. He inadvertently said we were going to print a gold eagle. You know, we had a subcommittee report sent out. The Constitution, the right of the Congress to coin money and regulate the value thereof, and I thought, boy, we have come full circle. You know, they even put it in quotes, and when I pointed that out, they did take that out. Even though they believe you can print money, they literally wrote print money instead of coin money. We've never had the authority to emit bills of credit, which really, I think the Constitution should be changed even to accommodate the system that we have. Yes, it is true that I have a bit of a religious fervor for this because I do feel intense about it, but I don't think that should necessarily be a negative. I think that a philosophic and a sincere commitment to something I believe in sincerely, it doesn't hurt to express myself. Matter of fact, I think it's interesting to note that you don't find many who have that same type of commitment for a paper standard. It is much different. I do believe I would concede to Governor Partee about the preconditions. I, for one, see a lot of shortcomings. And if I could wave that wand tomorrow and have my gold standard, I may end up being discredited because I see gold and the issue of money as more part of an entire system of government philosophy. And that is, if we had the philosophy of government intervention overseas and militarism, and if we have a government that is going to run a welfare state, and we had the gold standard that we would like tomorrow, I don't believe the gold standard is strong enough to present and make the people live within their means and limit the power of government. So I see the gold standard is one that restrains and keeps the government from drifting and going off a system which is limited, but I don't see it as the panacea. So I would say the conditions are very bad. I don't think they're as good as they were after the Civil War. There was a lot more trust in the system and trust in the money after the Civil War, and from 1876 to 1879 they were able to resume convertibility. I believe our conditions are much worse. And therefore, I do believe that if it's done carelessly, we could get into a lot of problems. And I think there's a great danger of accepting a pseudo-gold standard, which is essentially what we've had most of the time throughout history. And if we accept that and go to a standard that you could suspend rather easily, if it's a fractional reserve, it's not a gold coin standard, I do believe that that type of a gold standard would not serve us well. I would also say that it is true that when you do, even if you have a very good gold standard, yes, there is always a threat, just like there's always a threat that our civil liberties will be abused, that our right of free speech would be abused. In times of war, our civil liberties are taken from us. So I don't think that's any justification, but I would say that, you know, because our civil liberties are taken away from us, because we lose the right of free speech, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with the right of free speech. There's something wrong with the politicians who take away the right, or something wrong with the people who take the gold standard from us. So I would not see this as a reason not to have a gold standard, because there is a threat, and I concede there certainly would be a threat, as there have been over the centuries, that when politicians want more power to finance war or a welfare system, they indeed destroy the money. So I would say that it is that notion of government that is a greater threat to us than the gold standard itself. First point that Governor Partee made was that of the need to expand the money supply, the economic need for an increase in money in order to accommodate economic growth and population growth. I don't accept that. I think there's a fallacy in that. I don't think it's necessary at all, because again, I go back to a more primitive society when it's very easy to see what you need is production, you need work, and you need effort. That you don't produce anything with the creation of money and credit. That is only a vehicle, and the unit of account is something that we measure our productive efforts by, but it doesn't produce it. It does in an inflationary climate at the early stages of an inflation. By deceiving the people and creating new money, there's a deception, and yes, people do feel better, and it might stimulate for a while, maybe even for decades, but eventually it does the opposite, and that's what I'm afraid we're moving into now, where even the stimulation that we have today will not produce what we want and desire, and at each time we go through a cycle, we need more and more, and I believe the figures bear this out. In the past year, we've had to have more monetary inflation in order to achieve what we could achieve in previous recessions with a lot less new money. So to me, it's entirely unimportant about how much gold there is. Totally unimportant about how much new gold there is. And I don't see it as a problem if you're having economic growth and you have a gold dollar. If you put $1 in the bank and you get 3% interest, so you get $1 plus 3%, but your purchasing power goes up because prices went down, but there's economic growth, I see no problem. I think that's a good deal. I think that's more incentive to save, and therefore more capital, and more reason for people to invest in the future because things are looking good. I do not equate decreasing prices with depression. I equate depression with bad economic climates and a decreasing money supply in an artificial system which brings it about. But to have prices going down is no concern at all. It can be a definite asset. And it is true, though, that you don't have to worry about a steady money supply under a gold standard. Most likely there would be an increase. The average is 3%, about what the monetarists would like to increase the money supply at. But it is true it's erratic. I agree with Governor Partee. It is erratic. One year you might have a 5% increase, one year a 1% increase. But to me that is unimportant as well. The most important thing is that you have a free pricing mechanism. If you're worried about price fixing and a price level, that's different. But if the prices are allowed to fluctuate because there's an influx of gold or an outflow of gold from the country, as long as the pricing mechanism is there, there really is no deep concern. But the chances of having gold inflation today is rather slim. My real concern is about the paper inflation. You know, they say, watch out for Russia. They could, withhold gold or dump gold. But, it would take them 100 years to double the supply of gold in the country, so therefore to really significantly affect the purchasing power of gold. 100 years to produce that much gold. Took the Fed only 10 years to nearly triple M3. So I would say that's what you have to worry about. But it is not necessary to worry about the amount of money, amount of gold. The market can adjust for that. Matter of fact, I think the market would adjust it as the purchasing. It would not be steady. As the purchasing power of a gold dollar goes up, there would be more incentive to mine gold. If the purchasing power goes down, there might be less mining. But the most important thing is that we can measure value in something that is steady in value. And over centuries, gold certainly has served that purpose. You cannot use recent history and say that gold varies rapidly in its purchasing power because of the Federal Reserve note ratio to gold in these recent years. That's the dollar that is one day strong and one day weak. And it's the anticipation that they don't know what the future will bring. Stable exchange rates. Yes, I think stable exchange rates are what we need, but we don't need a law to mandate them. We don't need a new Bretton Woods agreement. That's not it, because it is true today, and even if we had some reform in the system, I doubt very much if we could trust everybody today to not inflate their currency and to define their currency in with a strict weight. But all I think about when I think about fixed exchange rates is you don't need a law for us to decide that if we're exchanging maple leafs and Krugerrands, to exchange them rather freely. And if the dollar or the foreign currency is defined as a precise weight, and then that ratio is set automatically. But it is indeed true that if you have paper currencies, whether they're loosely linked to gold or not linked to gold, printing at different rates, fixed exchange rates would be totally chaotic. Even under the Bretton Woods Agreement, there were thousands of periodic devaluations because even then they weren't supposed to be printing at different rates, and they were supposed to link their currencies together to the dollar. But there was always abuse because governments have this insatiable desire to create credit.